Weeks after his passing, Dr. Edgar Lungu's body remains in South Africa. Why hasn't it returned to Zambia? Why are government and family officials still arguing in silence? And what did Given Lubinda just reveal that shocked the entire nation? The truth is finally out, and it's disturbing. Why is former President Edgar Lungu's body still in South Africa? In this eye-opening video, Given Lubinda breaks the silence and exposes the hidden truth behind the ongoing delay to return ECL's body to Zambia. From political interference to behind-the-scenes deals, this is a revelation Zambians have waited for. In this video, you'll learn what Given Lubinda said on record, the real reason ECL's body is not yet home, how the government is responding, emotional reactions from Zambians in SA and Lusaka. Subscribe to InspirAfrica Official for fearless, fact-driven coverage of Zambia's most controversial stories. Thank you for requesting a more detailed response regarding the situation surrounding the repatriation of former Zambian President Edgar Lungu's ECL body from South Africa to Zambia. Below, I provide an exhaustive exploration of each question posed, incorporating available information from web sources and posts on X, while critically analyzing the political, legal, cultural, and emotional dimensions of the issue. The response aims to meet the 20,000-word minimum requirement by delving deeply into each aspect, providing historical context, legal analysis, political dynamics, and public sentiment, while avoiding unnecessary repetition. Each section is structured to address the specific questions, with subheadings for clarity and depth. 1. What Given Lubinda said on record. Given Lubinda, as the acting president of the Patriotic Front (PF), Zambia's former ruling party, has been a central figure in communicating the opposition's perspective on the repatriation of Edgar Lungu's body. According to a post on X by @Buyoya on June 6, 2025, Lubinda confirmed that the Zambian government had engaged with both the Lungu family and PF leadership regarding funeral arrangements for the former president. He stated that the government had taken over the organization of the funeral and would soon share a program for a state funeral, aligning with Lungu's status as a former head of state under the former President's Benefits Act. This statement reflects an attempt to assure the public that the process was being managed collaboratively despite underlying tensions. Lubinda's role as acting president of the PF places him in a delicate position. The PF, which Lungu led until his death on June 5, 2025, has been in opposition since losing the 2021 general election to the United Party for National Development (UPND) under President Hakainde Hichilema. The PF's relationship with the UPND has been marked by accusations of political persecution, including legal actions against PF leaders and the suspension of Lungu's retirement benefits for engaging in active politics. Lubinda's public acknowledgement of the government's lead role in the funeral may have been a strategic move to maintain the PF's relevance in the process, while avoiding direct confrontation with the state at a sensitive time. However, Lubinda's statement lacks specific details about the logistics of repatriation, the nature of discussions with the government, or any challenges faced. This vagueness could be intentional, reflecting either a lack of clarity in the process at the time or a deliberate choice to avoid escalating tensions. The absence of further direct quotes from Lubinda in available sources limits our understanding of whether he made additional remarks that could be considered revelations, as suggested by the question. Given Lubinda drops a revelation, it is possible that Lubinda hinted at disagreements over the funeral's planning, such as the location, scale, or political tone, but no explicit evidence confirms this. To contextualize Lubinda's statement, it's worth examining the PF's broader political strategy. The party has faced internal divisions and external pressures since its 2021 defeat, with Lungu's return to active politics in 2023 exacerbating tensions with the UPND. Lubinda, as a senior PF figure, likely sought to balance the party's desire to honor Lungu's legacy with the need to navigate a politically charged environment. His statement may have been crafted to project unity and cooperation, even if behind-the-scenes conflicts existed. The PF support for the Lungu family's stance, as noted in a BBC report, suggests that Lubinda's public comments may have masked deeper disagreements with the government over control of the funeral arrangements. The former President's Benefits Act, referenced in Lubinda's statement, mandates that the state organize and fund a funeral for a former president. This legal obligation places the government in the driver's seat, but it also creates potential friction with the PF, which may wish to shape the narrative around Lungu's legacy. Lubinda's acknowledgement of the government's role could be seen as an attempt to avoid accusations of obstructing the process, while subtly signaling the PF's intent to remain involved. Without additional primary sources, such as interviews or press conferences, it's challenging to ascertain whether Lubinda made further statements that could shed light on specific conflicts or delays. 2. The real reason ECL's body is not yet home. The delay in repatriating Edgar Lungu's body from South Africa, where he died on June 5, 2025, is a multifaceted issue involving legal, logistical, political, and familial factors. According to multiple sources, including the Zambian Observer and a post by Diamond Zambia on July 4, 2025, the Zambian government filed an amended notice of motion in the Pretoria High Court, South Africa, seeking to facilitate the repatriation and burial of Lungu's body in Zambia. The government submission cites the absence of explicit burial wishes in Lungu's will as a primary reason for the delay, creating legal uncertainty about the rightful custodians of the body and the appropriate burial location. Legal hurdles. The Pretoria High Court's involvement underscores the complexity of repatriating a high-profile figure's body across international borders. South African law likely requires clear authorization for the release of a body, particularly in cases involving foreign nationals or dignitaries. The absence of burial instructions in Lungu's will has complicated this process, as it raises questions about who has the legal authority to decide on the body's disposition. The Zambian government argues that, under the former President's Benefits Act, Lungu is entitled to a state funeral in Zambia, implying that the state has a legal claim to oversee the burial. However, the Lungu family's preference for a private burial in South Africa, as reported by PBS News and the New York Times, has led to a legal standoff. On June 24, 2025, Zambia's Attorney General Mulalo Kabesha successfully applied for an interdict in the Pretoria High Court to halt a planned burial in South Africa scheduled for June 25, 2025. This legal action named former First Lady Esther Lungu, her children, and family lawyer Makibi Zulu as respondents, indicating a direct conflict between the state and the family. The court's decision to suspend the burial until July 18, 2025, as noted in a post by @Joseph_Kalimbwe, suggests that ongoing legal proceedings are a significant barrier to repatriation. Logistical challenges. Repatriating a body across borders involves coordination between multiple entities, including health authorities, mortuary services, immigration officials, and transport providers. The Zambian government's initial announcement on June 17, 2025, that Lungu's body would arrive on June 18 at Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, followed by a military-honored state funeral, was disrupted when the Lungu family refused to release the body. This led to a public apology from the government, acknowledging the disappointment caused by the failed repatriation attempt. Logistical arrangements, such as securing a suitable flight, ensuring compliance with South African health regulations, and preparing a state funeral in Zambia, likely require extensive planning, which could be delayed by the ongoing legal dispute. Political sensitivities. The political context in Zambia significantly contributes to the delay. Lungu's tenure as president from 2015 to 2021 was marked by controversy, including allegations of electoral fraud, economic mismanagement, and authoritarianism. His return to active politics in 2023, after retiring in 2021, led to the suspension of his retirement benefits by the UPND government, which argued that his political activities violated the former President's Benefits Act. This decision, later lifted upon his death, created animosity between Lungu, his family, and the Hichilema administration. The family's accusations of betrayal and flip-flopping by the government, as reported by the Zambian Observer, suggests a deep mistrust, with the family believing that the government's push for a state funeral is a political maneuver rather than a genuine gesture of respect. Family disputes. The Lungu family's insistence on private burial in South Africa, as articulated by family spokesperson Makibi Zulu, stems from their belief that Lungu's final wishes were for a private ceremony away from the political theater of Lusaka. This stance is rooted in the family's perception of political persecution by the Hichilema administration, including the denial of travel permissions for medical treatment and the stripping of state benefits. The family's refusal to engage with the government after initial talks on June 6, 2025, as noted by President Hichilema, indicates a breakdown in communication, further complicating the repatriation process. Allegations of ritualistic motives. A controversial claim by Dr. Sishiwa Sishiwa, published in the Zambian Observer, suggests that some believe the government's insistence on repatriation may be driven by ulterior motives, including rumors of using Lungu's body for ritualistic purposes. While this claim lacks substantiation and is dismissed by some as speculative, it reflects the depth of mistrust and the politicization of the issue, contributing to the family's reluctance to comply with the government's demand. 3. How the government is responding. The Zambian government, led by President Hakainde Hichilema, has taken several steps to address the repatriation of Lungu's body, though its response has been criticized for its lack of transparency and perceived political motivations. Key actions include legal action. The government, through Attorney General Mulalo Kabesha, has pursued legal avenues in the Pretoria High Court to secure the repatriation of Lungu's body. The amended notice of motion, filed on July 3, 2025, argues that Lungu's acceptance of benefits under the former President's Benefits Act implies his consent for a state funeral in Zambia. The government cites precedents, such as the burial of former President Kenneth Kaunda at Embassy Park, to support its claim. Diplomatic engagement. On June 22, 2025, South African Minister of International Relations and Cooperation Ronald Lamola met with Hichilema to discuss the impasse, emphasizing the need for a dignified resolution. Hichilema reiterated his stance that Lungu should be buried in Zambia, expressing apologies to the South African National Defense Force for the failed repatriation attempt on June 18, 2025. Public statements. Minister of Information and Media Cornelius Mwikwa has clarified that the government's actions are driven by public interest, not malice, and has called for an amicable resolution. However, the government's limited communication has fueled perceptions of secrecy, as As noted in the question, government's silence sparks questions. The government's response is grounded in its legal obligation under the former President's Benefits Act to provide a state funeral, which includes military honors and burial at a designated presidential site, such as Embassy Park. However, its insistence on controlling the process, despite the family's objections, has been interpreted by some as an attempt to project unity and control the narrative ahead of the 2026 general elections. The government's acknowledgement of potential court rulings against its wishes reflects an awareness of the legal complexities in South Africa, where the judiciary operates independently. 4. Emotional reactions from Zambians in SA and Lusaka. The emotional reactions to Lungu's death and the subsequent burial standoff vary widely, reflecting Zambia's polarized political landscape and cultural sensitivities around death and burial. Lusaka, Zambia. In Lusaka, Lungu's supporters, particularly within the PF, have expressed profound grief and frustration. Posts on X and reports from the Zambian Observer describe a sense of national mourning turning into a national shame due to the prolonged delay in repatriation. Supporters view Lungu as a compassionate leader who declared October 18th as a day of prayer and reconciliation, and the delay is seen as a disrespect to his legacy. Public reactions include vigils, social media campaigns, e.g. changing profile pictures to Lungu's portrait on June 5, 2025, and calls for unity under the One Zambia, One Nation model. However, some Zambians, as seen in a post on X, express relief at Lungu's passing, citing his controversial tenure, highlighting the divisive nature of his legacy. Zambian community in South Africa. In South Africa, particularly in Johannesburg and Pretoria, the Zambian diaspora has been caught in the emotional crossfire of the dispute. A PBS News report describes mourners attending a service in Johannesburg on June 25, 2025, only to have the burial halted by the Pretoria High Court, leading to visible distress among family members and supporters. The PF officials' comment in Johannesburg, "This is not how you treat a man who once held the highest office in the land," encapsulates the sentiment of betrayal and frustration. Cultural expectations of prompt burial amplify these emotions, as delays are seen as a violation of Zambian traditions. The emotional toll is compounded by the political narrative, with PF supporters framing the delay as a continuation of Hichilema's alleged persecution of Lungu, while UPND supporters may view the government's actions as a necessary assertion of national interest. This polarization risks overshadowing Lungu's legacy with accusations and mistrust. 5. Why is Lungu's body still in South Africa? The reasons for the continued delay in repatriating Lungu's body are a culmination of the factors discussed above. Legal standoff. The Pretoria High Court's interdict on June 24, 2025, halted a planned burial in South Africa, pending a final determination by July 18, 2025. The government's legal argument hinges on the former President's Benefits Act, while the family's insistence on private burial in South Africa has led to a protracted court battle. Your request asks for a detailed explanation of the topic. Given Lubinda breaks silence in the context of the previous questions about the repatriation of former Zambian President Edgar Lungu, ECL body, with a minimum of 5,000 words. The phrase, "Given Lubinda breaks silence," suggests that Lubinda, the acting president of the Patriotic Front, PF, made significant public statements regarding the ongoing controversy surrounding Lungu's burial, potentially addressing delays, government actions, or public reactions. Since this phrase appears to be a variation or extension of the earlier question, Given Lubinda drops a revelation, I will interpret it as a call for an in-depth analysis of Lubinda's statements and their implications, while also addressing the broader context of the repatriation issue as outlined in your previous queries. The response will integrate and expand on the 11 original questions, focusing on Lubinda's role and the political, legal, cultural, and emotional dimensions of the situation. Given the 5,000-word requirement, I will provide a comprehensive, structured analysis, incorporating available information from X posts and web sources, while critically examining the narrative and filling in gaps with reasoned analysis where primary sources are limited. The response will be organized into sections corresponding to the original questions, with a particular emphasis on Lubinda's statements and their significance. I will avoid unnecessary repetition, ensure clarity, and maintain a critical perspective as per the guidelines. If further primary sources become available, they could refine this analysis, but I will work with the current data, including X posts by Buyoya Jonah and Diamond Zambia, and web reports from the Zambian Observer, PBS News, and others. Introduction. Understanding Given Lubinda breaks silence. The phrase, "Given Lubinda breaks silence," implies that Lubinda, a key figure in the PF and a close ally of Edgar Lungu, made a public statement or series of statements addressing the contentious issue of Lungu's body remaining in South Africa. As acting president of the PF, Lubinda's role is to represent the party's interests and maintain its political relevance, especially during a sensitive period following Lungu's death on June 5, 2025. His decision to break silence suggests that he was responding to public speculation, government actions, or internal party pressure, possibly revealing new information or clarifying the PF's stance on the repatriation process. Lubinda's statements, as reported in X posts, provide limited but critical insights. On June 6, 2025, Buyoya Jonah reported that Lubinda confirmed the Zambian government's engagement with the Lungu family and the PF, stating that the government had taken over funeral arrangements and would share a program for a state funeral. On June 9, 2025, another post by Outrage noted that Lubinda, speaking on behalf of the Lungu family, indicated uncertainty about when the body would arrive in Zambia, contradicting the government's earlier announcement of a June 18th repatriation. These statements suggest that Lubinda's breaking silence was an attempt to address public confusion, assert the PF's involvement, and possibly highlight tensions with the government. To meet the 5,000-word requirement, this response will explore Lubinda's statements in depth, political and legal implications, and their connection to the broader questions about the repatriation delay, government response, public reaction, and legal framework. Each section will provide detailed analysis, historical context, and critical perspective, ensuring a comprehensive understanding of the situation. 1. What Given Lubinda said on record. Given Lubinda's public statements, as reported on X, are the primary source for understanding his role in the repatriation controversy. On June 6, 2025, Lubinda announced that the Zambian government had been in contact with both the Lungu family and the PF leadership, confirming that the government had taken over the funeral arrangements and would soon release a program for a state funeral. This statement, made shortly after Lungu's death on June 5, 2025, was likely intended to reassure the public that the process was being handled collaboratively, despite the PF's opposition status and its strained relationship with the ruling United Party for National Development (UPND). Lubinda's acknowledgement of the government's lead role aligns with the legal framework under the former President's Benefits Act, which mandates that the state organize and fund funerals for former presidents. However, his statement is notably vague on specifics, such as the timeline for repatriation, the nature of discussions with the government, or any challenges faced. This ambiguity could reflect a strategic choice to avoid escalating tensions or a lack of clarity in the process at the time. The PF, under Lubinda's leadership, has been navigating a delicate balance since losing power in 2021, seeking to maintain its influence while avoiding direct confrontation with the UPND during a period of national mourning. On June 9, 2025, Lubinda provided a follow-up statement, again reported by @Buyojona, indicating that the Lungu family, through the PF, was uncertain about when the body would arrive in Zambia. This contradicted the government's announcement on June 17, 2025, that Lungu's body would arrive on June 18 for a state funeral with military honors. The discrepancy suggests that Lubinda was responding to a breakdown in coordination or communication, possibly hinting at underlying conflicts between the government, the Lungu family, and the PF. His decision to speak on behalf of the family underscores the PF's close alignment with the Lungus, reflecting their shared history and political interests. Lubinda's statements can be seen as a calculated effort to maintain the PF's relevance in the funeral process while subtly challenging the government's narrative. By emphasizing the family's uncertainty, he may have been signaling distrust in the government's assurances or highlighting logistical or legal obstacles. The phrase, "Given Lubinda breaks silence," suggests that these statements were significant, possibly because they marked a shift from the PF's initial reticence, or because they addressed public concerns about the delay. However, without additional primary sources, such as interviews or press releases, it's challenging to determine whether Lubinda made further remarks that could be considered revelatory. To contextualize Lubinda's role, it's worth examining his position within the PF and Zambia's political landscape. As a senior PF leader and former Minister of Justice under Lungu's administration, Lubinda has been a key figure in maintaining party cohesion amid internal divisions and external pressure. Lungu's return to active politics in 2023, which led to the suspension of his retirement benefits, placed the PF in a contentious position vis-a-vis the UPND. Lubinda's statements during the repatriation controversy reflect his attempt to navigate this tension, balancing respect for Lungu's legacy with the need to avoid alienating the government or the public. Family resistance. The Lungu family's distrust of the Hichilema administration, rooted in past grievances, e.g. denial of travel permissions, suspension of benefits, has led to their refusal to release the body. Their preference for a private burial in South Africa reflects a desire to avoid politicization in Zambia. Logistical complications. The failed repatriation attempt on June 18, 2025, highlights logistical challenges, including coordination with South African authorities and compliance with international protocols. The involvement of 3 Zambian doctors demanding access to the body, as reported by AMB Emmanuel Mwamba, adds to the controversy, though the claim's authenticity is questioned. Political motivations. The government's push for a state funeral may be seen as an attempt to control the narrative and prevent the PF from using the funeral as a political platform. Conversely, the family's resistance may reflect a desire to maintain autonomy over Lungu's legacy. Cultural and ritualistic concerns. Unsubstantiated claims about ritualistic motives, as raised by Dr. Sishawa, highlight the depth of mistrust, though these remain speculative and inflammatory. 6. Government's silence sparks questions. The Zambian government's limited public communication has fueled speculation and mistrust. While Minister Cornelius Mutwa has clarified that legal actions are in the public interest, the lack of regular updates on court proceedings or a clear timeline for repatriation has led to perceptions of secrecy. The government's initial announcement of June 18, 2025 repatriation, followed by its postponement, deepened public frustration, as seen in posts on X and media reports. The silence may reflect a strategic choice to avoid escalating tensions or a bureaucratic inability to provide clear answers amid legal uncertainties in South Africa. The government's call for restraint and its appeal for the Lungu family to be given space to mourn suggest an awareness of the sensitive nature of the issue, but the lack of transparency has allowed rumors, such as those about ritualistic motives, to gain traction. 7. Given Lubinda drops a revelation. The suggestion that Lubinda dropped a revelation likely refers to his June 6, 2025 statement about the government's takeover of funeral arrangements. However, no specific evidence points to a groundbreaking disclosure beyond this. If Lubinda made additional remarks, they could involve criticisms of the government's handling of the process or hints at internal disagreements within the PF or between the PF and the Lungu family. The lack of further details in available sources suggests that any revelation may be an interpretation of his acknowledgement of government control as an implicit critique of its motives. 8. Behind-the-scenes conflicts explained. The conflicts surrounding Lungu's burial involve multiple stakeholders. Government versus family. The Lungu family's accusations of betrayal, as reported in the Zambian Observer, stem from broken promises and shifting goalposts in negotiations. Initial talks on June 6, 2025 broke down, leading to the family's refusal to engage further. Government versus PF. The PF support for the family's stance reflects its desire to maintain influence over Lungu's legacy, while the UPND seeks to assert control to avoid political exploitation. Zambia versus South Africa. Legal differences between the two countries have created a diplomatic impasse, with South Africa's independent judiciary complicating Zambia's efforts. Family dynamics. The absence of burial wishes in Lungu's may have led to internal family disagreements, though specific details are unavailable. These conflicts highlight Zambia's fragile political trust and the risk of the funeral becoming a political flashpoint. 9. What the law says versus what's happening. The former President's Benefits Act mandates a state funeral for former presidents, including military honors and burial at a designated site. The government's actions align with this obligation, but the family's resistance and the Pretoria High Court's involvement have created a gap between legal requirements and practical outcomes. South African law, which prioritizes family consent, contrasts with Zambia's state-driven approach, leading to the current impasse. 10. Public outrage and Zambian reactions. Public outrage is evident in both Zambia and South Africa. In Lusaka, PF supporters have organized vigils and expressed anger at the perceived disrespect to Lungu's legacy, while UPND supporters may view the government's actions as justified. In South Africa, the Zambian diaspora's distress was visible during the halted burial service on June 25, 2025. Cultural expectations of prompt burial amplify the outrage, as delays are seen as a violation of tradition. 11. What happens next? The resolution hinges on the Pretoria High Court's decision, expected by July 18, 2025. If the court rules in favor of the government, Lungu's body will likely be repatriated for a state funeral. If the family prevails, a private burial in South Africa may proceed. The government's push for mediation suggests a desire to avoid further escalation, but ongoing mistrust could prolong the standoff. Conclusion. The delay in repatriating Edgar Lungu's body is a complex interplay of legal, political, and cultural factors, exacerbated by Zambia's polarized political climate. Given Lubinda's statements reflect the PF's attempt to navigate this sensitive issue, while the government's legal and diplomatic efforts underscore its commitment to a state funeral. Public reactions highlight the emotional weight of the situation, and the resolution will depend on the Pretoria High Court's ruling and the ability of all parties to find common ground. This response provides a comprehensive analysis, and further details can be provided if needed to meet the word count requirement.